Hey y'all, welcome to She Read It Real Talk, where I share real Reddit stories, providing reflective commentary with a compassionate perspective. And today we're talking about relationships, that is, romantic relationships. So go ahead and pull up a chair to my dining room table and let's chat. So, our discussion on relationships, we have these OPs writing in about their situations and they want some guidance. They got questions. And we all know that relationships, they can be messy and they can be really complicated. But from my perspective, it is up to the people who are in the relationship to establish the boundaries. They need to come to an understanding about what's okay, what's, behaviors that are acceptable and behaviors that are going to be unacceptable and going to be a deal breaker in that situation. And just as relationships can be kind of tumultuous and be complicated, they can also be really fulfilling and bring us joy when we have those right kind of conversations, when we set a foundation and when everybody in the relationship is operating with integrity and honoring the boundaries and the understanding that has been set if those conversations have occurred. But even without those conversations, and what we'll see today is that there are just clearly some things that you don't do in relationships, or you have to operate with a certain level of honesty when the situation changes or you feel differently. So, before we go any further, my name is Harper, and I am going to guide us through the real talk and the Reddit discussion in the post today. So, let's go ahead and get into it with our first post. This post is titled, Why Can't I, a 49-year-old male, get over someone 48-year-old female I haven't been with for over 25 years? So it starts off by saying, I, 49-year-old male, have been married to my wife, Lisa, who's a 48-year-old female, for a little over 25 years. Before that, I was in an on again, off again relationship with another female, Jane, for 4 years. I met my wife just after we broke up the final time. The relationship with Jane was intense. She had a lot of issues, and honestly, I had some too. She was abused by her stepfather as a child. Sometimes she would almost present a completely different personality. I was not allowed to touch her or even talk to her during these times. She would cry uncontrollably. She would break up with me, tell me to never contact her again. Then later, she would call me, or I would call her, or we would write each other letters, and everything would be fine for a while. Then the cycle would repeat. I have to say, she was the sweetest girl imaginable during the good times. I know she loved me deeply, and I her. She was everything to me. We talked about marriage, kids, but it never happened. I started to drink more when we would separate, which probably happened as often as monthly, sometimes longer. Well, I became really messed up, honestly. Jane and I have similar personalities. I didn't have to deal with abuse, though. I kept my substance problems to myself. No one ever knew, or at least I don't think they did. Anyway, I met my now wife, Lisa, on one of our breaks. We hit it off immediately. She was so sweet and good to me. I think she saw through the disguise and could see I was hurting. She would just do little things that I wasn't expecting. She looked out for me, and I needed it at the time, I guess. Well, Jane saw us together one day, about 3 or 4 weeks after our first date. I could see she was really distressed by it. I felt horrible. I still loved her, and seeing her hurt was devastating to me. I never told Lisa I saw her that day. I think she knew something was bothering me, but I blew it off. I did call Jane later, and she wanted to see me. She didn't look great. There had obviously been some tears, and she was very quiet. She hugged me. She asked me who I was with. Tearfully, she said she seemed nice. This just destroyed me. I could never stand to see her hurt or cry. She was such a sweet girl. Finally, she told me it was okay and not to worry about her. that I should go. I did after a while with her two cats who I had become friends with watching me. I didn't want to, or maybe I did, as I did leave. Lisa and I dated for almost a year before we married. I saw Jane quite a few times before and after we married, mostly at my work, a large supermarket where I was a manager. It was always friendly, usually a big smile and a hug, asking how we were doing. Never a phone call or a letter, though. I missed that, but it would have been improper, I know, and she would never do that. The years passed. I saw her less frequently and finally not at all. I still thought about her all the time, though. My wife was always a little insecure about her. They're both attractive women. I know she knew how close we were. So now we move on to present day. I was talking to a friend, Tina, who's a 43-year-old female, a few days ago, and she asked me if I had heard about Jane. I said not for a long time. I was thinking she was going to tell me something like she was getting married or something, but no. She said she had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. I must have looked shocked as she asked me if I was okay. She said Jane had never married or even dated anyone since we broke up. This really made me feel awful. I knew she hadn't dated much before she and I got together, but I had hoped she would find someone. I honestly never really let her go completely in my head. I know that's wrong, but it is what it is. I said I would send Jane a message on Facebook, and that evening I messaged her. I was friendly and asked how she was doing. I said I had heard she was having some health issues. It was surreal contacting her again. There was no answer to my message for several hours after I sent it. Then I noticed I was blocked. This hit me hard. I hadn't told my wife I was messaging her, so I couldn't talk to her about it. I ended up messaging the other friend who had told me about Jane's diagnosis. I asked Tina if Jane hated me now. Tina said I should look back and think about everything that had happened, and I might understand a little how this could happen. She said Jane had basically put her life on hold after broke up, and to imagine how it felt for her. For me, it felt worse than 25 years ago, really. I asked her to tell Jane to unblock me and message me. That hasn't happened. I'm not handling it well at all. I can't talk to my wife about it. I'm not comfortable talking to anyone about it, really. I physically couldn't talk to anyone about Jane and our relationship for a long time, not even my wife. I was finally able to talk to my wife about it, but that was about 5 years after we were married. But I don't think I can talk about this now. I'm trying to act as if everything is normal, but I know my wife will see through it eventually. So I am here. Advice would be appreciated. Questions are also okay. And then after some responses, the LP did give an update, and this is what the update says. Nothing has really changed. I haven't talked to my wife about any of it or spoken or been in contact with Jane. Lisa and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary this weekend. It's hard to believe we've been together this long. I'll update again if anything changes. I appreciate all the advice and comments. I guess I should add my feelings remain the same. Not good. I'm having dreams about all of it, trying to carry on. Okay. So I think there are layers to this. So I'm going to go ahead and dig in. And the first thing is that the OP needs to get a handle on his emotions, manage his own emotional state, and move on. He needs to move on. He has a wife and he is dwelling on feelings of the past. And that's completely understandable that you may have been in love with someone and you still, have some tender feelings for them. I get that part. The where I try to be compassionate and empathetic in most situations, my empathy really goes out to Jane because the OP seems to be self centered and selfish in this situation. And I want to dig in a little bit to talk about how it seems like he never really has managed his emotions. From the start of the letter, he talks about this on again, off again situation with Jane. But Jane seems to be the person who's driving that. And he does, reference that she has some challenges, but in those challenges that make their relationship unhealthy, he's never really breaking away. Jane is driving, pushing him away. And as she pushes him away, then that's when he gets into the mode of drinking too much. And he mentions that in the letter. So he's using alcohol to cope, but not managing his emotions at that point. So then they break up that final time. But it's like it's probably the final time because then he gets into this situation with his now wife. His wife probably might have been a rebound, and sometimes rebounds evolve into, you know, significant relationships as it has in this situation. But the issue is he got jumped into this relationship with his now wife, but never managed the feelings and the emotions he had around Jane. So, and then he also remarks on how his wife, seeing that he was hurt or could see through it and was really taking care of him and he needed it at that time. So it was like she was really shouldering the emotional burden of his feelings. And he never really quite grew up and was adulting and managing his own emotions. So that's the part that stands out is that he needs to man up, and whether he needs to see a therapist or he needs some other type of support, he needs to be able to manage his own feelings in a healthier way, not the drinking, not putting in off the emotional burden off on other people, not dwelling on these feelings with Jane. um, he needs to manage his own emotions, and he doesn't seem to know how to do that well. Even with him not being able to talk about the situation with Jane, and then he finally is able to, to speak about it, but it's with his wife. That also, to me, is indicative of this man does not manage his emotions well. So I think I've really covered kind of this part of him really needing to do something about what he's feeling. And the next part I want to get into is that, he's now putting the emotional, trying to, it almost seems like he's going to put the emotional burden on Jane if she were to respond to his messages. And that's problematic for many reasons. But one that sticks out is because she is having health complications and she needs to manage her health, not be tied into whatever emotional state that he may be in. And if Jane were to respond, what does he have to offer Jane? This man is in a full blown, committed, not relationship, marriage. He's in a whole marriage. It doesn't matter how many lingering feelings he has nothing to offer Jane, and he hasn't even thought through or processed that. There is no friendship for him to have with Jane. There is no friendship for him to have with Jane. And it just feels very unfair to bring whatever his emotions are to her. It really seems as if he does love her, it's like the if you love someone, you let them go type of situation applies here because it does not seem right for him to bring this to her doorstep at all. So again, the OP needs to really manage his own emotions, move on. We also have the other element of him not being transparent with his wife, and that's a whole nother situation. And I think the comments really will hit on that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and dig into some of these comments. So First comment I want to highlight says, our strongest memories are the ones tied to emotion, at least of lasting impact. That's how our brains work. Jane's trauma kept her from being able to be in a healthy connect or to have a healthy connection. Your substance abuse may have as well. The breaking up creates trauma, and then getting back together heals that feeling, creating a trauma bond. This type of passion created from pain wasn't healthy. Your relationship with Jane was intense and you never dealt with those feelings. You left Jane for another woman and then married her. It was cowardly to wait until you had another woman lined up to fill her place before leaving Jane. I'm sure it hurt her a lot and required a lot of healing. Stop contacting Jane. It's selfish. You're putting your need for closure or forgiveness or wherever you're seeking above her need to move on and deal with her health. If she wants to talk to you, she knows she can. You're now betraying your wife's trust by secretly contacting exes behind her back. How would she react if she knew? Know that the only reason she's not acting that way is because of your ability to lie to her. Really crappy. Stop repeating cycles. You'll be in the same position with your current wife if you don't start prioritizing her feelings. Your wife deserves better. Act like it. Stop destroying your marriage and go to therapy. I absolutely concur with everything that is in that reply. Want to move on to the next comment, which says, I understand why you feel awful. Feeling this way makes you an empathetic and caring human being. But this weight does not belong on your shoulders. You need to figure out a way to put the weight down. As sweet as Jane was, your relationship was unstable and sounds unhealthy. Think about it. Could you have built the life you have now with Jane? I get why Jane blocked you. She's dealing with cancer, with the real possibility of death. She has to use all of her energy to fight. You were the one who got away. You went on to meet your person and grow a happy life. Jane not being able to do this isn't your fault. For Jane, I'm sure it's still hurtful because her life turned out so differently. Jane made choices in her life after you left. She had 25 years of choices. How she feels and how her life turned out isn't your fault. You need to let that go. So we definitely see there is some varying perspectives. I don't think any of this is on Jane. And truly, we only got things from the OP's perspective. The friend did bring Tina, I believe her name is the friend, did bring some context to the way that Jane may be feeling. But I think it's a little unfair to even allude to that. We know more about her life than we do. And she may have been happily single. She may not have been, but whatever the situation is, I don't want to make any assumptions about Jane. Really, again, my compassion, my empathy goes out to Jane and that, give her the time, space that she needs to do to manage her health, move on because you have nothing to offer her. And we don't know her life. We don't. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next story. But before I do, if you've gotten this far, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, comment, and let us know. What do you think the OP should do in this situation? Have you ever had the lingering feelings for someone you had dated years ago? How did you manage that? Did you contact them? Let us know in the comments. So, again, I'm going to move on to our next story. The title for this post is, What Do I Say to my boyfriend, 44-year-old male who doesn't seem to realize he's just broken up with me? And the OP is a 45-year-old female. I've been dating my boyfriend for about a year. When I met him, he had separated from his wife and they were going through a divorce. 8 months after separation, I don't usually date men who are only separated, but we just clicked. One thing I've asked from the beginning is whether or not he wants to have more kids because I'm child free for medical reasons. He's always said he wasn't bothered either way. The relationship with his children is very strained and they don't like going to see him. Now the divorce is complete. I've warned him that he'll spiral, having had friends go through the same thing, which is usually why I don't date men in this period. But he was adamant he was going to be fine. He isn't. He is totally spiraling. I've suggested that he go back to therapy, but he doesn't want to. I've said not to just have these thoughts and feelings swirling around in his head and to talk if he needs to. He started talking to me about his feelings, and one of them is that he wants to have more kids. Now, he said this in a stream of consciousness in a voice note. I'm on a waiting list for hysterectomy. He's still texting as normal. How do I confront this? He doesn't really have anyone else to talk to. However, our relationship is basically over in my head now. And so then the OP does provide another update where she says, thanks for the answers. I've replied to as many as I could, but eventually it got a bit repetitive. To those who never saw my replies and have the same questions, his kids were happy to see him when we met. But as the divorce became more acrimonious, they started to say things that in my mind, children wouldn't typically say. If he had said anything about his children not wanting to see him when we first started dating, that would have been a red flag for me. Helping a friend through a divorce and listening to them go through various ideas is a very different to the person you are seeing doing it, especially when they're talking about things that means the end of your relationship. And now on to the update. We met up and I asked him if he was aware that he said he thinks that he wants to have more kids. He said, yes, it's a possibility. I said, you're aware that I'm on the waiting list for a hysterectomy. He said, yes. I said, so you are aware that this essentially means we're over. He said, it doesn't have to mean that. We can continue to see each other until I make up my mind. People, I nearly fell off of my chair. I stared at him and realized that he actually never knew me at all. Anyone who knows me knows I would never put up with this foolishness. I actually laughed and said, you want me to continue to see you while you decide whether or not you want kids. And then if you do, I should meekly walk away. Does that sound fair? He said no, but he loves being with me and doesn't want to lose me. I told him I was lost the minute he told me he might want more kids. I said I appreciate him telling me the truth, but the consequences of that means we're over. I told him what I would have told a friend. Sort out your relationship with your children you have before making new ones, and gave him a book on the subject. I left and cried. I'm going to miss him a lot. He's been texting, but I may block him soon. So I just want to say kudos to the OP for standing firm on knowing what was best for her and making sure she aligned her actions, she aligned her behavior, everything she said with what was going to be in her best interest. She wasn't double minded, she was not conflicted in that. And I'm pointing this out because many times, ladies, there will be these glaring red flags and we will focus on the potential of someone. And this may happen for men, but I know it from a woman's perspective. It's like many times we will focus on that potential when there are red flags, and we will let a lot of things go and think about, oh, how I like spending time with this person. I think that I can see a future with this person. And not really seeing that there are these major points of contention, like in this situation where it was clear to the OP you want kids potentially. I can't have kids. And there's no world in which I'm going to wait around for you to make that decision And that it wasn't even fair to ask her to do so. So again, kudos to her for really understanding what her needs were and for moving forward in her best interest and emphatically moving forward in her best interest. She didn't wait around. And, like she said, she cried. So it wasn't easy. And sometimes making the best choice for ourselves isn't the easy choice, but she did what was best for her. I also want to talk a bit about the ex-boyfriend. Understand he was spiraling, he's going through a divorce and all of these things. Uh, a- and I'm gonna circle back around. Come back to that, right? Put a pin in that real for just a minute. I am gonna point out one thing about the OP. She does reference the reason why she gave this man a chance, although he was still technically married. And I am of the mind that married is married until you are divorced. But she says she gave him a chance because, they really clicked. But even in that, she is a woman of a certain age and mature enough to know that even if you clicked, you might have wanted to go ahead and let there be some time space in a real divorce that happens. So I'm just going to point that out. I don't want to gloss over that point. So now let me get back to the ex-boyfriend in this situation and the level of entitlement or whatever had maybe going on in this self-centered behavior. It appears to me that the OP was just the good time girl for him. And for men who, maybe they got their side chick or something and it's somebody outside of their marriage or their relationship, that woman is to me the person they can have fun with. They can go out with, they can go on trips with, they can go out for drinks with, out to dinner with. It is what I say is that the good time girl versus the person they're in the relationship or in the marriage with who they have responsibilities to. They got to think about the bills. They got to think about the kids. They got to think about taking out the garbage and whatever they got to do around the house. And they're not really wanting to always have that um deal with the responsibility, deal with the adulting and the seriousness of being in a relationship. So it's the side piece where it's kind of the escape for them, which is that good time girl. And that is to me kind of seems where he was putting the OP. And that's I'm glad she moved on because to me, that means that he may have never taken her seriously, even though they connected in some type of way. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the comments. It says, "Yeah, I think he saw it as good times and perhaps even more selfishly, great emotional support for him. Maybe he also thinks it's equally good for the OP, so she'd be happy to accept that relationship. But I think it really shows that he doesn't see the relationship as serious at all. It's like, yeah, we have fun and we enjoy each other's company, kind of what I was just saying. We can see how serious it gets later. This is a huge deal breaker subject, though. The OP is right not to risk wasting their time. Even if the guy doesn't want kids, I think it would have been a waste of time, honestly. He's not in the right mental state to be in a relationship. She says he's spiraling and should see a therapist because of his divorce, but he's leaning on her completely for that. He needs a good while before he gets into a relationship again. Completely agree. Next comment says, some people only see a relationship under the prism of what a relationship brings to them. They never see the relationship from their partner's point of view, and they always feel blindsided when the partner dumps them. I think that definitely adds, another point of view. And we got to be careful. We got to be careful that our partner isn't necessarily just using us, right? Because that's what that seems like. You're just using or misusing a person when you only see it from what you can get out of them. Seems pretty transactional. So, next and final comment I want to highlight says, I'll call this being the doorstop. You're you're there to hold the door until the person he actually wants walks in. Then you get kicked out and the door shuts behind you. But you were useful for a while. I really like that comment because we have, you may have been through or know a friend who's been in a situation where they have like really showed up for the relationship, really been good to the other person. And that other person just shows that they have some reservations all the time or there's always a problem. But the reality is that person doesn't really see or want to be with you. Not because anything is wrong with you, but maybe they're just looking for something different. They're just using you as a placeholder until the person they really want comes along. And that's not the person you want to be. Everybody deserves people who see value in them and not someone who's just using them for the time being. So definitely like that comment highlighted that perspective. So again, going to move on to our next story, and this is going to be our final Reddit story for this episode. But before I do so, again, like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe. I want to grow this community so that we can come together and have these discussions and this commentary. And also comment on what do you feel about this situation? What do you do when you see red flags? Are you someone who has excused red flags in the past? Are you someone who kinda, hey, you just let it go as soon as you see the red flags? I am gonna say about that Reddit story, it did make me think, like, I wanna be more like that OP and really stand firm and stand my ground. When I see something and it's gonna be problematic, let me just go ahead and move on. I don't need to stick around. So again, comment and let us know what you would do in a situation like that. So let's go ahead and move on to our final Reddit story, which is titled 27-year-old female, husband 28-year-old male. My husband is borderline cheating on me in an online role play game. My husband is heavily involved in a game in which members role play as characters in a town. This is a Discord server where the members voice chat and they can type back and forth to each other. Each member has jobs and roles within the town. My husband spends multiple hours on this game per day. Please forgive me if this is sloppy. I feel kind of frazzled right now. I will add as much detail as I can. I am a stay at home mom with a 6 month daughter, a 6 month old daughter. My husband works 40 to 50 hours per week, sometimes less. I do nearly all of the housework and childcare. I'm adding this in case it's relevant. Okay, now on to the actual issue. I'm gonna stop right there just for a second because I want to talk about her saying she's a stay-at-home mom. I'm gonna say she works in the home because it's a lot of work to take care of the home, to take care of a 6 month old. Um, and even though the husband works, already standing out to me is how is he having so much time to spend on a game when they have a newborn, which the mom I would need help with. I'm thinking she might need help. But okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go right back into the actual story. So the OP goes on to write, okay, now on to the actual issue. Through this game, my husband has met a few online friends, and these friends all talk about their home lives and their in game lives. Much like if you were meeting up with your friends every day to play Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, my husband has become especially close with this one woman, a 28-year-old female. I'll call her B. They talk every day through Discord. Even when my husband is at work, he will still be chatting with her. I know this because I've seen these messages. They voice chat with me in the room every day. This woman knows about me and our daughter and will frequently ask how we are doing. I kind of felt odd about their relationship recently, and I spoke with my husband about it, who assured me that they're just friends and it's nothing for me to worry about. I it didn't necessarily make me feel better, but at least my feelings are known. In the game, however, their characters are dating. I think today I even saw them RP as being intimate. Typing this is so stupid. This is truly embarrassing. Is this cheating? It feels like a roundabout way to cheat. I'm losing my mind here. Not to mention, they could be saying more intimate things in the game. I see in their Discord chat that they read each other's journals. God, typing this feels so obvious to me. I don't want my marriage to end. I worry if I bring this up, it'll make me seem crazy. I just need some advice, solidarity, even something. Postpartum has been hard enough. Now, this mess. So then there's going to be several edits and several updates. So getting into the first edit says went through his phone, found sexting, even when he was at work, woke him up from sleep, and we're talking now. I hate my life. Then she goes in with another edit to say, baby girl and I are hitting the hay. I will respond more in the morning. Thank you to everyone who took time to comment. It's been very cathartic and more helpful than you know. So you're going to see throughout all of these updates that she's kind of giving like real time in the moment. And as she is going through it, updates. So now she gives another update that says, we had a long chat, a few hours. At first, he seemed like he didn't think what he was doing was wrong. I can't stress enough that they were sexting in real life, not in character. I took screenshots of the messages. I was upset, very upset. I'm never angry. I usually beat around the bush. I didn't this time. I told him this ends now or he doesn't have a wife anymore. I told him this is the last time something like this happens or I'm gone. I told him if he value his family, this ends and never continues. He said he understood and it won't. I told him he must allow me to be upset for as long as I need to, that he doesn't get snappy with me because of it either. Within reason, I would never be abusive, etc. I'm just not going to be myself for a while. Their messages are burned into my retinas. I feel sick. I sent her a message in the moment. I should have said something more tasteful, but whatever. Saying that I'm his wife, she can have him. They have messed up my family. I hate her and him, and that I'm 6 months postpartum, and this is absolutely vile. She knew about me, has seen pictures of my daughter, hears her in the background with me, and is a mother herself. Was that the most graceful thing to do? No, but it felt good. I know I shouldn't be mad at the other woman, but she knew about me, our baby, and how I've been having a hard time. Times like these make me feel like there's no real love in the world, makes me feel terrible about myself and my weird postpartum body. Just makes me feel so hostile. I don't know if I'll move past this or if this is the beginning of an end. But for now, he agreed to do better, stated that he loves me and doesn't want to lose his family. We shall see. I'm so angry. I'm still angry. I want to share their text, LOL. Now she gives some additional updates. So here's another update. It says he deleted the messages I sent to her before she saw them. He's on his way to work and they're on a Discord call. You can't make this mess up. Also, looks like they may be texting now since they know I read their Discord. Husband's recent chat states, I know you said to text you. Thank you all for letting me crash out on this post. Haha, it's helpful. Even if it feels like my life is exploding. So then she goes into another update saying, I'm staying with my parents this weekend. I'm terrified to start over. I have exactly zero money, and all of this is massively embarrassing on top of everything. I know I shouldn't feel bad about myself, but I do. Postpartum changed my body. I don't know, man. Maybe that contributed. I'm gonna mope around for a day or so, then figure things out. LOL. Thank everyone. I will update when I remember and or when something notable happens. Then the next update says, I don't know if anyone is even looking at this, but I left. He said he wanted an open relationship and I was just done. I'm sad, lonely, upset, numb. I just can't believe it came to this. And then there is another update that says, you all are so wonderfully kind. Thank you all so much. You guys have made me feel a lot better and helped me out and not to feel alone. Thank you, Reddit. Well, I'm done. I left with my daughter. He was entirely unwilling to break things off with the other woman who has a family of her own, mind you. I'm not going to show my daughter that it's okay for a partner to mistreat you. I have nothing. I have to start from nothing. I have to move back with my parents, and I don't have a super great relationship with them. I'm shattered. I miss who I thought my husband was. I wanted a family. I waited years to get married to him and have a baby for this exact reason. But I have my daughter, who I love more than anything in the world. We still have to figure out the divorce and custody, but I want to focus on myself now, getting my color back, taking care of myself again. Thank you to everyone who commented and reached out. I truly couldn't have done this without you. So, my heart goes out to the OP to have to go through this is devastating to anyone to go through a breakup, much less than a divorce. And then on top of that, she is just had this baby. And this is a time where your husband, your partner should be supporting you. They should know that you're going through one of the most complicated times of your life. And I'm calling it complicated because, of course, there's joy and the love of having a child, but you are creating this new identity as a mother, all while taking care of a child. So you may not be getting the sleep. Your life is now revolving around this infant. And you would think that your partner would be there to support you. So, again, my heart goes out to the OP to have to go through this at such a time when she should be enjoying being a new mother and getting used to that. Um, I also want to say this is another situation where I commend the OP for doing what was in her best interest, despite how challenging it has to be for her to do so at this time, to start from nothing, to go back to your parents and they're not completely supportive. And now you got to rebuild your life. And I'm glad that there's so many comments that were encouraging to her, that were affirming to her, um, because most people would not have had the courage to do the thing that was right for them in the long term, being that in that moment, it had to be incredibly difficult for her. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the comments. For first comment, I want to highlight just says, you made the hardest but healthiest choice, choosing yourself and your daughter over a man who treats a commitment like a side quest. It's going to be tough, but trust me, nothing brings back your color faster than dropping the dead weight of a cheating gamer. The next comment I want to highlight says, of course, things will get better because you and your daughter deserve way better than that piece of trash. The guy wasn't just a horrible husband, he was a horrible dad too. Instead of helping with the house and parenting, he was out having an emotional affair with a married woman. And yeah, just as guilty. She knew about you, knew what you were going through, and still didn't care. You should find her husband and tell him what's up. He deserves better too. He's probably out there working his butt off for his family while his wife is sneaking around giving her attention and energy to another man. You 100% made the right call leaving that guy. You're going to rise from this like a phoenix because you're a warrior and an amazing mom. Soon you'll see you're way better off without him. No more playing married single parent and his maid on top of that. Be proud of yourself. You put yourself and your daughter first, show that you respect yourself, and set an example for her, and that this kind of treatment is not okay. Now, get a lawyer ASAP and start the divorce process. Fight for you and your daughter's rights. Since you were a stay at home mom, you're entitled to alimony and child support. And don't just separate while you're still married. His debts are your problem too. And you have no idea what he's spending money on. Have you even checked your bank statements? Also, change all of the passwords, open a bank account he can't touch, and get tested for STDs. Even if the affair was just emotional, you don't know what else he's been up to or how long he's been lying to you. The only thing you do know is that you can't trust him. And to that, the OP did respond. She said, "Love you. Thank you. Yeah, she's tried pulling the whole, but I was lonely and he helped me. I'm mentally ill and he helps me, which made me feel so sick. This is a woman in her 30s, older than me, with two children of her own. People are so cringe. Seriously, though, thank you. I saved your comment." I think that comment was so affirming and just gave her a lot of golden nuggets of, some things, some actionable things she could do, but just also just really encouraging. And of course, the OP needs encouragement right now at such a challenging time. And I think that comment really wrapped it up nicely and just putting some context into that. Her husband was no good. She'll be better off without him in the long run. And she does need to be strategic now that they're separating. Go ahead and figure out the bank situation. Go ahead and make sure she's taking care of any health situations because he can't be trusted. Another thing that comes to mind, and I'm just going to put this out there, is that she said that she waited a long time to get married to him and to have a child for this exact reason. And I'm wondering if he gave her any red flags prior to this. And is that what she's alluding to and saying that she waited? So was there something going on prior to where he showed signs that he just wasn't a trustworthy person? So that's just kind of my last thoughts on that last story. And with that, I'm going to wrap up. So, we know relationships are all about trust and honesty, and reflecting on the relationships that we've discussed in this episode. We know the trust and honesty is not just with your partner being honest with you, but you got to be honest with yourself. You have to trust that you know the right things to do to take care of you, and we've seen that that can be complicated sometimes with the OP who has these lingering feelings and isn't being trustworthy not only in his relationship, but he isn't managing his emotions properly. But we also seen where people are being honest with themselves and taking actions that are going to create a better future for them because they weren't in the right relationship. So, relationships, there's layers to them. And a part of that is making sure that you are taking care of you, independent of that relationship, that you make good choices for you. So, again, kudos to the OPs that had the courage to do the right thing in a difficult moment so that they could do the right thing for their future. So with that being said, I am going to wrap up here. Thank you for joining me for this episode of She Read It Real Talk. Again, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have other Reddit posts that you may be interested in me featuring on a future episode, please post that in the comments, and I may again highlight that on a few future episode. But with that, I'm going to conclude, and I'll see you in the next one.